Happy to be here, Shaun Carvalho again, and I'm sitting here with my colleague, Brendan Reedy. Brendan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, so thank you for having me. Again, my name is Brendan Reedy. I'm a safety manager at Shawmut. I've been working at Shawmut for about 9 years, and this is my fourth big project that I'm working at. I'm currently working at the MIT Metropolitan Warehouse Project. It's a great project. It's downtown Cambridge with a lot of action, a lot of high hazards. Have about 200 guys and girls on site, and it's about a 4-year project. It's about a $300 million project with a full phase gut reno and with lots of exposures, and I have an awesome team around me. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm honored to represent Shawmut Safety.
Awesome. Thanks, Brendan. I'm glad you agreed to do this podcast. First podcast, right?
Yeah. It's awesome. It's exciting, a little nerve-wracking, but it's exciting. It's just like, just stepping up to bat. So
that's right. That's right.
Pitches.
Yeah. The more pitches you see, the better you get at it. I mean, I've only done a couple of these now, and they're kind of fun, but it's easy sitting here with you because you're
of course.
Really easy to talk with. And, I want to get to MIT because I actually have a lot of perspectives on that job and things that I want to share around you and what I see what you're doing on the site with the team around you. But before we get to that, I want to kind of go backwards a little bit because This podcast is going to reach a lot of different people. It could reach kids in college. It could be people that are thinking about transitioning into the safety world, people that are thinking about going into construction. So we want to give a little bit of different perspectives for what it's like working in the field every day with people like you said. And so before we get to the MIT stuff, like where did you start? When did you start thinking about safety? What got you into safety? And then the follow-up to that is going to be kind of like your first couple years in the role. What was that like?
Okay, great. Those are great questions. So let's rewind a little bit. I graduated Keene State. I'm a Keene State grad. 2009, I graduated, and like every other college kid, I was eager to get out and hit the ground running, but also very nervous at the same time on where my career was going to go. I interviewed with a few GCs, and obviously Shawmut was the one that I chose. I was very honored to even get the opportunity. A family friend of mine was playing soccer, and my stepmom saw that a Shawmut shirt, and she said, "Have you looked into Shawmut?" So when I looked into Shawmut, I was very excited to apply, and knowing that a lot of kids that I previously graduated with had worked at Shawmut, so I had some connections and some bridges there. And then when I met you, Shaun, 9 years ago, we had a great interview process, and then my first project that I got hired on was Boston Medical Center, and then I was overseeing the Prudential as well, which is really cool. But being completely green, very nervous, I think that the very first thing that I saw when I was on a construction site was how large scale it was compared to what I thought it was. So when you first get on a construction site, I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I was very nervous, but I was so excited that I didn't know where to channel my energy. So I focused very highly on the low-hanging fruit stuff, which I think any new or green safety manager or safety officer at the time would do. But one thing that I learned very quickly being in construction is that you got to leave your ego at the door, and you have to come in prepared for something new every second, every minute of the day. And I think that when I walked in, I didn't think it was going to be like that. I thought it was going to be very cookie cutter, and this is how construction goes. And I was, very surprised and very shocked that that's not how it goes, and that sometimes the plan that everyone comes up with isn't the plan that we follow. Great question. You said is where we started. So when I did start at Shawmut, I felt that everything the superintendent said was the thing to do, which it is sometimes when you're working on a team like that. But when you have a good team that surrounds you, sometimes it's not all about what the super is. It's about a team collaborative effort. And I learned very quickly that the super's in charge, but we all have a say, and we can all come together to build a team to provide a great project. I graduated Keene in 2009, and like I said, I've been in the field for 9 years. So I love it. One thing I do pride myself on now, being kind of a seasoned guy, is I had a lot of addiction and mental health that surrounded my friends and family, and I would think that when I came into construction, I wanted to approach everyone like a human being, not just another number. And something that I think that it took me many years, almost 4 or 5 years in the beginning of my career, is leave my ego at the door. These are guys and girls that have other things outside of life, but when we're at work, we need to be a family. And I think that that's something that I pride myself on now having some experience in the field that everyone needs a shoulder, everyone needs a friend, and everyone needs a support system around them. And if I can provide that, it's only going to make everyone better on the job, both physically, mentally, and run a smooth, safe job. So that's something that I'm still developing, still learning, and still eager to learn more about daily. And I love my team. I love my support system around me. I love being part of safety because I like to help people. And it's exciting. Every day is different. You learn something every day. Some days are better than others, but I really do love working in safety.
That's awesome. So for the math whizzes out there that are listening to this, you said you got 9 years experience, you graduated in 09, we sit here in 2024. So
yeah,
there's a gap there, right? So before you came on to Shawmut and kind of went into construction, you obviously did some other things. So tell us about that.
So I worked briefly for like 3 or 4 years in environmental. I didn't really like it, to be honest, because it was kind of a confined lab space environment where everyone kind of had their own workstations, if you would, and there wasn't too much collaborative efforts going on with the team. It was kind of a singular work environment, and everything was so cut and dry that it was either right or wrong, and I didn't feel like that was the way that I think I could best influence the workers on site. So working in environmental, no knock on them, it wasn't for me. I had some construction background. Family members and friends that I grew up with my entire life were all in the construction industry, and it was very easy for me to relate to those people. Mental health and drug addiction and substance abuse and suicide is so, the numbers don't lie. I just can't believe how much it affects the construction industry. And knowing that I dealt with some of that with my family and friends growing up, I think that it's easy for me to relate to those people on a personal level, but also being able to relate that in a work level as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so big differences between kind of that environmental field and being super green, coming right out of Keene, and then transitioning into or changing careers really entirely into construction. So obviously you like construction, you have a background in it, your family, friends, et cetera. It just felt like a natural fit, which I think a lot of people listening to this will relate to as well, like naturally drawn to construction. And it's like we hear in the intro often, like it's a wicked cool business. There's so much cool stuff happening, and you've worked on a lot of jobs. And working with you now and, for 9 years and seeing where you're at today and where you were when you started, you've had a lot of growth. And it's funny, you talk about the different personalities with superintendents, and you named a couple jobs. So I'll just say the areas, the Pru, we had an old-time superintendent there, definitely liked to do things his way. Really tricky, tough job. Most people probably don't even recognize that it was done because there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes, the way we change things there. Remember that other one on Newberry Street, and super tough, technical demo, crazy things going on there, and just those were your first, and then you mentioned BU, your first couple jobs working for Shawmut, like really going between jobs and checking things out. So not just the superintendents, but different scopes of work on site, client, and personalities.
Yes.
And being young and, like you said, kind of green to construction safety, what were, I guess, maybe some of your biggest challenges? And because I can remember you calling me with some things, and those were tricky jobs. And I was an idiot. Brennan, you're safety. You go deal with it. Tell me what if you need some help. And there were times you needed some help because there were some challenges because those jobs were insane. So what were some of the challenges you saw?
So I'm happy you said that. So I was on 2 different jobs, and they were a block away, and they couldn't be. They were polar different jobs, polar different leadership. Mm-hmm. We had a superintendent that was an old New Yorker who kind of always dug into us because we were the Boston guys, and I think he was in his 60s, and had been running big work for non-union, and then he came union, so he was kind of all over the map with safety. And then the superintendent that I'm working with now was like overseeing his job at nights, so I was able to work with him, and he's like a bulldog. He completely supports me in safety, but he'll always he's always how do I say it? He's the type of superintendent that wants to do things his way, but he always needs a good team around him, and he surrounds himself with good people. So it's just easy for me to fit into that, family or pie, if you want to say, because he's a go-getter, he's a pusher, and he's one of the best supers, and he knows his stuff. So having a guy like that who's been a great mentor to my career, and then I go to another job site and I got a superintendent who's not wearing PPE, doesn't really care about schedule, but also runs a great, safe job. So it's kind of hard to work for a guy that doesn't show or lead by example, but he also has a great relationship with the client. So it's kind of a weird situation that I'm going to a job that's like 100% PPE, 100% supportive safety, and then I'm going across the hall, across the street, and it's like 60-40. So definitely challenges. One challenge that I've noticed since the day I got into construction is reading the room, and I haven't always been good at that. Sometimes I come in, I'm a boisterous guy. Sometimes I come off a little cocky sometimes because I do like to talk to everyone. And one thing that I would say to anyone new in the industry is if you can, try to leave your ego at the door. Try to be the best collaborative team member that you are. Be open-minded. Everyone's equal. Everyone has a backstory, and everyone is there for a reason. So just like a team, everyone plays their part. One thing that I did, like you said, for a challenge, one thing that challenged me is learning how to read the room while understanding the construction process. So like I was saying before we started the podcast offline, like I remember coming out of Keene and like only looking at safety glasses and fire extinguishers, and I was completely overseeing the high hazard stuff. And now all I focus on is the high hazard stuff. So, having a cord or having a guy without safety glasses, yes, those are important things, but sometimes with all the high hazard stuff being dialed in, it's easy to look over the low hanging fruit stuff. And I think that my advice to any new guy or girl coming into safety is take a deep breath, assess the situation the best you can, realize that you're dealing with people, it's a people industry, and try to be the best support system and ally, but also be the authoritative figure to represent the safety of your company as well. The most important thing is that everyone goes home to their families and friends at the end of the night, and if I can help in any aspect, which I've done, in a few different jobs and a few different times, where people have pulled me aside and I'm a friend, I'm a crying shoulder, I'm a support system, which will help them in turn within their career and, maybe help within their life with family and friends and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's been a pleasure to be able to work in the city of Boston. I was born and raised in Boston, so it's, near and dear to my heart. I was born at Boston Medical Center. I worked there for 3.5 years, so it's my mom and dad both worked there. So I've had a long connection with that area and with that job site and that building. So
yeah, you'll hear a lot on this podcast around what's in it for the trades and why is construction so cool, and because Jason Edick talks a lot about that. It's all about the trades. I mean, the trades are the people that are building this beautiful city and these buildings, et cetera. And I think when you talk about leaving your ego at the door and tips for young professionals coming in or people changing roles, right? We have within our team, we've got carpenters, laborers, electricians, tin knockers that have transitioned from those trades over into safety. So you talk about leaving your ego at the door. I think that's great advice, and just being there for people and being understanding that I like how you said that, like a piece of the pie. Like safety is a piece of the pie. It's very the idea of safety is really important because we all need to be safe. Like you drive down the road, if you're doing 100 in the middle lane and without a seatbelt on, at some point somebody's going to swerve into you. You're going to get real screwed, right? You're going to get hurt,
of course.
Right? So safety has to be kind of like part of everything we do, but that doesn't mean that it has to stand on a pedestal and that we're ultimately in charge of everything on site. We're not. We're just part of that. And I think that's some of the stuff that I've seen a lot in you over the years is like early on, like you said, worrying about maybe things that matter, but it's the things that you could focus on at the time. And maybe you were missing some other things that were going on, and focusing on high risk stuff, really important. But one thing that I want to call attention to is what you're doing now. Like you walk your job, there's not a person on site that you don't know. And it's interesting because when you do come across somebody you don't know, you're like, hey, hold on a second. Who are you? Have you been through orientation? I didn't think so because I do orientation. I didn't put you through orientation. So meet me in 20 minutes when I'm done walking the job, and we're gonna get to know one another. And so you develop that relationship day one from everybody on site. And so you can help them or they can help you. Hey, come to you. I've got this question. I got this problem. I got this situation I need to get through. I'm not exactly sure how to do it. Can you give me a hand? And I think that's the best way that safety can help continue to, positive trend in construction to get these buildings built properly. And so people feel good, like you said, when they're leaving. Like, it's not just the safety guy coming over yelling at me because I'm not wearing my safety glasses. It's just like, hey, Jim, what are you doing? What do you mean, what am I doing? Well, your glasses, where are they? Oh, yeah, I'll put them on. And by the way, I got to talk to you about this thing. All right, cool, let's talk about it. And that's a relationship that I've seen you develop on, a lot of your last couple of jobs, which is incredible. And I think to relay that back to, any, like I said, potential new safety pro coming into the field, I think that's really strong advice that you're giving there. Leave your ego at the door, work with people, not above people, be relatable to everybody so that they may feel more comfortable coming back to you and asking you to help solve something that could be tricky, because we're not cops. That's not what we're here for.
I like how you just said that, because I can elaborate on that a little more. Another thing that I would say to a young safety professional is, whatever you think you learned in Keene or wherever you went to school, you can keep that in your back pocket, but you can throw some of that away, because I am no better than the guy or girl working next to me, whether you're a superintendent, the client, an apprentice, or a delivery driver, or et cetera, a crane operator. We're all equal. We're all here to build a project, but safely do that together as a team. And sometimes I think that if you don't have, I really do truly in my heart feel like if you have a good team around you, good morale, positivity, rewarding the people that need to be rewarded, calling out the people that are doing a good job, but also holding people accountable. That's what my job is, to make sure that people are doing the right thing. But that also starts with the team. And if you have a team that you can have, something that I pride myself on is that I can't take credit for this because my super does this, but we do a daily huddle. We do a 1:00 huddle every day, where we get all the guys and girls that are the foreman together. Everyone exchanges numbers, and it's a way to talk out what happened, what was good, what was bad, and what's coming up, upcoming work, and and I think that helps out to show the subs that, yes, we wear the general contractor emblem on the back of our, on our hard hats and on the back of our vest, but we're no better than you, and we're here to all work together. There's also a lot of time on these projects where you can develop, we're working with these guys and girls for 50 to 60 hours a week. So we develop relationships with them. And if you treat people, I'm a firm believer, if you treat people good inside and outside of work, only better things will happen to you in life. And just like I said, another thing to the young safety professionals out there, safety's a small world. So you never want to burn bridges, because I'm running into guys that I haven't seen in 5 to 6 years, but they still remember my face. They still remember what company I work for. And that's something that's very important, that, again, just making sure that you treat everyone with respect. I know some people think that's corny when people say that, treat everyone equal, but it's a true thing. And I pride myself on that. And when I do my speeches, I do a speech, a all hands safety meeting on Wednesday. I try to, I talk off the cusp a little bit. I have some talking points, but I speak from the heart, and I speak to try to relate to these guys, that I'm here for them. I'm going to hold you accountable if you're doing something stupid. If you're going to get someone killed, we're going to stop that work. But at the end of the day, these are professionals, and they know what they're doing. So I'm there to help them, remind them what's right and wrong, but also be a support system, be an ally. And if they ever need that, I'm always here for them.
That's awesome. And like I said before, I've seen you grow into, the safety manager that you are now. And that takes time. I mean, nobody's going to, nobody's gonna be the same person they are in 10 years that they are today, and you're walking proof of that. And seeing where you're at now is getting over to MIT, right, and being able to walk that job a couple times with you and seeing you in action, what's really cool, in addition to you knowing everybody's name and the trades coming to you for kind of problem solving, is those Wednesday morning meetings, the all hands meetings where everybody's gathered together, the whole site. And what's so impressive to me, I'm just going to tell you here on this podcast, is when you're talking, it's awesome. But you also have other people chiming in. And a question could be asked from deep in the audience, and it's answered from the other side of the room from an unknown voice. But the answer's right. And I've never really seen that with like up to 200 people on the job. You can hear a pin drop in the meeting, which is crazy in and of itself. On an active construction site, I mean, you stopped for this meeting, but it's still an active site. And the amount of collaboration and engagement that almost everybody on this job has towards helping one another and building this wicked cool iconic structure on Mass Ave in Cambridge is unbelievable. And that culture that's been created, by your team, yourself, your team, but bought in by all the subs and trade partners that are coming in, it's really cool.
Yeah, I like. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I do pride myself on those meetings, and you've attended some of those, especially during safety week. We got deep, we got emotional, there was some tears, but it was from the heart. It was people, and I'm happy that you said that, because there's not a Wednesday morning meeting that goes by that someone from the site, we've been doing this for 2 years now, that there's not something said. Whether it's something like, hey, I need a lift moved because I need to get my delivery in, or I have a pipe delivery coming in, or even today we had a duct smoke test, and the subcontractor called Cambridge Fire. Shawmut didn't have to make the call to tell them that, hey, if you see smoke coming from the site, we're doing a smoke test. That just shows you that the subcontractor cared enough to go out of the way. Shawmut didn't instruct them to do that. So things like that, we have a great positive vibe that's going on that job, more than I've ever seen in my career. And I just want to keep it rolling. There's times where I get up there and I'm super nervous, and then within 3 minutes of me talking, because they're about 5 minutes, these speeches, all my nerves and butterflies go out the window, because I feel like I'm talking to my family members and friends. I have great relationships with everyone on site, and I do pride myself by knowing everyone's names, but I also know a little bit more than just their names. I know a lot about who they are, so when I do see them doing something stupid, I can say, hey, you were just talking about going to the lake with your grandkids. You're not going to be going to your grandkids if you fall off the building, or if you're putting other guys at risk. Those people aren't going to be able to see their grandkids or their wives or their family members. So one thing that I really am just loving about what's going on my team is how we can just tie it all together. And both the outside of work, making sure people are great mentally, physically, and emotionally, and then tying that into the work. And I love construction. It's fast paced, which I like. I'd be lost if I was sitting in a cubicle. That's why I got out of environmental. And I love it. I love seeing these buildings go up. My family always jokes around, because whenever I'm driving with my wife, I'm like, oh, that's a Shawmut site. I worked on this site. And she kind of just like, yeah, whatever. But she fully supports me. I have a great support system at home, which makes me the man I am today. So.
Yeah, and I agree. Obviously, I'm a big fan of construction. I mean, seeing these buildings go up, the skylines continue to change, and it's really fun to be part of. And some construction can be negative too, right? It's a hard business. We're out in the elements, all year. There's always something that's difficult, except for those rare, nice 70 days, right? But and then what I was kind of feel like is construction still has some negative things that happen in it, right? We have unsafe conditions. We have people that may not want to always follow the rules because nobody's really telling them to. They just assume, I don't need to do this here. We're not always providing, in construction as a whole, residential, commercial, union, non. There's not always like great facilities for people to sit like a human being, like you and I are here, and enjoy a rest break and eat, and little things that are crazy, but they bring some negativity to construction. And on the opposite side of that are jobs, not just like yours, but plenty of other really, really great jobs that exist out there. But specific to yours, you guys have kind of created that culture where everybody's equal. We're all working together because collectively we're going to turn over this amazing job. And I want to just kind of quickly tell a story of like how that showed up actually during safety week with an incident. And it wasn't just about people coming out and saying in the meeting, hey, I've got this or I've got that. I need this moved. I need that moved. I have this story I want to share about that relates to this topic during safety week. But there was an incident on the job where somebody was suffering some medical conditions. And not to get into great detail with this incident, but it happens, right? You walk down the street, you could see somebody having a medical episode or get hit by a car, whatever it may be. But what is so cool about construction, and especially on this job, is how the different trades reacted immediately. Now, fast forward, this person's fine. All right, so that's the good news. They suffered a medical incident episode. Doesn't matter what it was for purposes of this podcast, obviously. But what I had heard had happened was just the instant communication between a different subcontractor, different company identifying this medical situation, having the wherewithal to call 911 immediately. Somebody else picks up the phone, calls Shawmut. Shawmut deploys people all over the site to flag the ambulance down, to open the gates, hoist the elevator, stay in stationary waiting to bring people where they needed to go. Tower crane operator being ready to go, riggers ready to go if we needed the Stokes basket. I think there were 5 or 6 different trades involved and tons of people within those different companies running around to render care to this person so they could get help as quickly as possible. And I just think that's something that's somewhat unique to construction, where people don't really care. They want to help. They want to help. They want to make sure that their partner or the person working next to them or around them is cool and safe and not getting hurt. And if something goes wrong, they want to jump in and act. So really, really cool job, and a real positive light on construction as a whole, I think.
That was great. That's a great story. Unfortunately, we did have an event, but you couldn't have nailed it on the head better than that, because the collaborative effort from everyone, there was about, not only did 25 first responders show up because we got a 911 call to Cambridge, but I would say that 30 to 40 people came together to make sure that this guy was all right, and it was amazing to see. It went like that. I would think that by the time we called 911 to the time everything was over, it was like 3.5 minutes, and it felt like it was an hour and 20 minutes. I was sweating. I was completely out of breath. I had so much faith in my team that everyone who directed everyone, no one questioned anything. And everything is all right with that gentleman today, which is the only thing that matters. But it also, I'm happy that you shed light on that, because from the top down, from the crane operator to the lead super to the laborers and carpenters on the site, we all came together to help that person. And
that doesn't top down, because that was the tower crane operator as high as they go to the laborers that were holding the gate open on the fence at ground level. So everybody in between just like ran around like crazy. It was nuts.
You don't see that. Someone struggling in the subway. You don't see people stopping to help people. You don't see people even doing that sometimes within their own family. So to see that on a construction site with so many macho man and egos like everyone thinks, they came together, and I was completely impressed. And it still blows me away on how much of a team and a family came together, to the point where when everything was said and done, we all looked at each other and everyone was just hugging each other, slapping 5. It was great. It was awesome. And, the guy's all right is the most important thing, that he was able to go home safe that night to his family. And if we hadn't had that team collaborative, we could have been having a different conversation.
That's right. That's great. Well, this has been an awesome talk, Brandon, getting to hear a little bit about, kind of you being able to share a little bit of your story, because, it's cool. Graduated Keene in 2009, did a couple weird things in the environmental world. You didn't switched over to construction 9 years later, doing an amazing job and at all the buildings that you work at. So thanks for taking the time today. Is there anything else you want to share to the audience? Any tips, any advice that you felt like you didn't get out?
No, I think I kind of hit everything on the head. I get a little nervous sometimes talking in front of the cameras, but if anyone ever knows me or ever needs to talk, I'm here, and I'm just honored to represent Shawmut Safety. There's no one else I'd rather work for, and I love being in the construction industry. And if you're choosing that path in life, come out hard, come out strong, and come out ready to learn and support your fellow colleagues. So it's a great industry. I love working in it.
Awesome. Good stuff, Brandon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.